Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. Today, we are completely demystifying a concept that is frankly wildly misunderstood. We're talking about the concept of white magic. Now, before you start picturing wands or spells or, mystical fantasy worlds, I need you to just wipe the slate clean. We are stripping away all of that fantasy right now. What we're actually exploring today comes directly from the esoteric teachings of Djwhal Khul, who's also known as the Tibetan. And as you'll see, this is a deeply grounded, intensely psychological process. It is absolutely not what you think. It is what you already are, just struggling to finally emerge.
Okay, let's dive into this, because the actual definition we're working with here is going to instantly shatter whatever preconceived expectations you might have. White magic is defined simply as the living process by which the soul impresses, controls, and eventually fully expresses itself through the personality. That's it. There's literally no supernatural trickery here. It is rooted entirely in psychological and spiritual reality. It's just the process of your highest self, your soul, finally getting through to your everyday walking around self. We aren't talking about some airy-fairy spiritual romanticism here. We're talking about a very practical, structural alignment of who you actually are.
And the source text, it is incredibly rigorous about this fact. Djwhal Khul states, "Let us be precise in our definitions, for vagueness is the enemy of all true occult work." I absolutely love this because it is a strict, non-negotiable demand for absolute clarity. He's explicitly warning us right out of the gate that this material is not just some simple belief system. It's not a rigid doctrine you're supposed to reverently memorize and just blindly follow. It is an active, living framework. Honestly, if you approach this looking for vague, feel-good spirituality, you are going to completely miss the absolute precision of the mechanics being laid out here.
Now, what's really interesting about this is that to understand this living process, we have to look at the tools the soul actually uses. The text describes the human personality as a threefold instrument. You've got your mind, your emotional nature, and your physical body. Think of these three things as the equipment. The soul, which esoteric texts locate in the causal body, essentially the higher, eternal repository of who you really are, is constantly attempting to operate through these three specific human tools. It deeply, deeply wants to impress its quality and purpose upon them. But, well, as we all know from daily life, these tools have a major tendency to just run off entirely on their own.
And that leads us directly to the massive problem we all face every single day, the automatic and the mechanical. I mean, how often do we just react without even thinking? I really want you to consider the state of your personality when it acts entirely from habit. When you're operating purely on unexamined desire or just riding the sheer momentum of your past conditioning, you are trapped in the mechanical. The text refers to this as the merely human state. It's what happens when that threefold instrument, your mind, your emotions, your body, is just running on its own momentum, completely disconnected from the impression of the soul. Let's bring this right into the modern day and break the fourth wall for a second, okay? Here in the year 2026, let's be real, most of us are running heavily on autopilot. We mechanically check the exact same apps on our phones, we react blindly to the exact same triggers, we repeat the exact same relational patterns over and over again. And not because we intentionally chose them, but because habit and emotional momentum made the choice for us. On the other side of that, we have white magic and practice. This is the intentional, soul-impressed state where you actively break that momentum. It is the exact opposite of our modern autopilot. It's the conscious, deliberate choice to let your inner know, rather than some random external trigger, dictate your response.
And this brilliantly illustrates what happens when we actually achieve that alignment. When the soul successfully impresses its note upon your instrument, the results are incredibly tangible. First up, the mind becomes responsive. It's no longer rigidly locked into its own endless loops of anxiety or fixation. Second, the emotional nature grows quiet and translucent. I just love that word, translucent. Instead of muddy, turbulent emotions clouding your judgment, there's just peace and clarity. And third, your physical action finally aligns with that inner direction. You can clearly see how absolute clarity completely replaces reactivity here. This is what the actual practice of this concept looks like in reality.
But I need to offer a very sobering, grounded reminder right here. Not someday, now. The tendency with esoteric teachings is to always push the goal line far off into the future. We think, I'll be perfectly aligned when I go on that silent retreat next year, or I'll master this in a few decades when life finally slows down. No way. The source material is abundantly clear that this alignment applies urgently to right now. It applies to exactly how you listen in a difficult conversation today. It applies to whether you actually pause before reacting to that wildly frustrating email this afternoon. It's about what is motivating the very next piece of work you do.
Because ultimately, you guys, this teaching is a highly practical tool. And just like any tool, you have to actually test it out in the field. The source gives us 3 crucial tests to run. 1, does it produce clearer seeing in your life? 2, does it generate genuine service to others? And 3, does it actually work in actual life? If you try to apply this framework of soul alignment and it doesn't create concrete positive change in your modern everyday life, well, actually, you should simply set it down. It is not meant to be some theoretical fantasy. It literally has to work for you. So, how do we actually put this tool to work? Let's slow down for just a moment here. I want to invite you to try a weekly practice starting today, drawn straight from the modern application of the text. First, I want you to choose one recurring daily situation where you know for a fact you run on autopilot. Maybe it's a specific task, a habitual reaction you have, or a certain conversation. Second, before entering that situation this week, pause. Just wait for 60 seconds. Take a simple grounding pause. Third, in that silence, ask yourself, what would soul alignment actually look like here? And finally, just note what shifts. Actively observe and use this simple 60-second pause to break your mechanical momentum.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with one stark, deeply intimate question. It's a perennial question directly from the soul, cutting right through all the noise and chaos of our daily lives. Ask yourself, in this moment, in this choice, is it the soul directing or is it conditioning? Carry this question with you today. Really examine your immediate next action and ask yourself who is actually in the driver's seat. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey through the text today. Keep questioning, keep observing, and I'll see you all in the next explainer.